Stories. Today, I've got paranormal enthusiast Professor Alex Wheaton with me and my research expert Sean. I'm, of course, Andrew Huzar from Huzar Reiki and Readings. This series is looking at local legends, ghost stories, haunted locations, things like that. We are not here to prove or debunk anything. We're coming out of a place of love and curiosity. I grew up loving these tales, but I was always too chicken to go to them. So we are going to dig up any lore that we can find, and then we are actually going to go to the place, and we're going to see what we experience, if anything, and we're going to let you all know. The first place that we've got today is we are looking at the Erie Cemetery. And there are two specific locations that we're for sure checking out. We also found a couple interesting tidbits that we want to take a look at. I'm going to go ahead and pass over to our research expert to see what he's dug up.
Opening in 1851, the Erie Cemetery is located in the center of the city of Erie and is the final resting place of over 50,000 souls.
50,000?
The first of these was Alexander W. Brewster on May the 26th, 1851. The Erie Cemetery is home to many prominent locals, including Daniel Dobbins, a veteran of the War of 1812, Strong Vincent, a general at the Battle of Gettysburg, and Sarah A. Reed, who was a founding member of the Association for Improving the Conditions of the Poor and a Home for the Friendless.
50,000 people? 50,000? What's the population of Erie?
It's pretty high.
It's like 70,000.
Yeah.
Jesus.
And, I mean, one of the things that you kind of tend to forget unless you live right near the cemetery is that it's like 8, 9 full city blocks.
Yeah.
Like, it's a large property. It's the whole reason why anytime there's usually any kind of phone call to animal control in town for coyotes, it's usually in the Erie Cemetery because it's so big that you can have wild animals in the middle of the city that are just roaming because they got in. And it's like, yeah, I don't know how many times you've heard, but deer, coyotes, badgers, like weird animals you wouldn't expect to find in the city are usually right around there because of the large property that is the Erie Cemetery. It has to be big enough for 50,000 bodies.
Oh, I'm going to bring that up once we get to one of these apparitions here, because that raises a good point. So like many cemeteries, the Erie Cemetery has many legends and ghost stories, ranging from tales of spirits following you, all the way to Satan worship. One such tale is that of a black dog apparition. As the legend goes, visitors to the cemetery have claimed to witness a black dog wandering around for the graves, only for this dog to vanish as they approach it. Assuming you are still walking in the cemetery after a close encounter with a hellhound, you may come across a circular grouping of headstones. This is the alleged site of a satanic ritual, during which Satan himself was said to have been summoned, dragging the followers with him back to the depths of hell. As you continue, there are several tombstones in this area, with scorch marks potentially a result of this satanic encounter. One of the most famous and mysterious tombs in the Erie Cemetery.
Real quick, Andrew, before you continue, isn't this also locally known as the Witch's Circle?
Yes.
Okay. I was say I just wanted to make sure that this is the same thing. So if someone's listening or watching and they're thinking it sounds familiar, but they're not calling it the Witch's Circle, is that something else? I just wanted to verify that that is what locally we refer to that circle of satanic worship as the Witch's Circle.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then of course the Vampire Crypt.
Ah, yes.
It is one of the most famous and mysterious tombs in the Erie Cemetery. And it's a very elaborate crypt, detailed, and it has a strange V on the front. Some people say it's a flower, but we'll definitely take a look at it. But the real name of the grave is the Brown Vault, and the last entombment was in 1880. Although the crypt's owned by the Brown family, all 7 of the occupants have the surname Goodrich. That's really weird.
I know.
So somebody
It's the
paid,
Brown family vault, but it's the Goodrich.
So the Brown family paid probably a hefty penny for this vault.
Yep.
But it's only the Goodriches.
That's weird.
So I have a question, thinking about this, just elaborating, being the paranormal enthusiast that I am. If we do consider this as the wonderful legend of the Vampire Vault, would it be possible that the Brown family may or may not have been, in the past, a group of vampire hunters, whether or not they are still to this day, and that's why they bought the vault, to make sure that it stays sealed. Just thinking out loud, based off of the fact that we know it's not any of the Brown family is buried in it. Just thoughts, things that we don't really think about when we hear the legends.
And I like this first legend up here. I'll let you read the second one that Sean found. But the legend associated with the landmark attempts to fill in some of the blanks. These tales surmise that the V does not stand for vendetta, and in fact stands for vampire. Erie'ites call this the Vampire Crypt. One origin story involves a wealthy man making a business trip to Romania where he fell ill. Upon his return, he died and was interned into the Brown Vault. A week later, dead bodies began to be found in the area surrounding, being drained of their blood with signature bite wounds on their neck.
And knowing that I would say I have a copy right here, so you don't need it. But considering, that Erie Cemetery is right in the middle of town, even in the old days, like, the town went up to what, like 26th almost?
As I say, that it's now in the center of town,
But it would have been right at the edge, yeah.
That was considered the outskirts.
Yeah, that was right there, so, I mean, that was all, we know it was all farmland. That's the other thing, is we know that back at this time, this upper part of the town was farmland, so that raises some interesting thoughts about that. Another tale involves a teenage boy breaking into the hallowed grounds. Always a mistake, but as proof of his brave venture, he had removed a ring from the corpse. Why? Next morning, the boy was found dead in his room with the color drained from his body, his face contorted in a look of sheer terror, and his ring finger ripped from his hand. As the truth of this vault has been taken to the grave, do remember that, like all evil entities, having the name of that entity gives you power and dominion over it. This may be, in fact, why this grave is nameless. Interesting.
So the Erie Cemetery is definitely just a sliver of the eerie things that happen in our city. This is but an appetizer. We hope, if you're ever in the area, you visit the site and be respectful of the grounds. Definitely something there. Like I said, we're not going out as ghost hunters, but we will be posting pictures and any videos we take of the areas. You will notice that we're always respectful. If you do go out to any of these places, don't leave garbage, don't break anything, don't be rude to people, and definitely don't be rude to the ghosts and spirits that inhabit the place.
Mostly because you never know what may follow you home.
Yeah, you don't want to come home with a negative attachment all of a sudden. And especially a place like the Erie Cemetery, a lot of paranormal groups and people do go there a lot, because it is public ground once they're open. So just be good people when you go.
Be respectful.
And with the Vampire Crypt, I'm going to start there, then I'm going to circle back to the Witch's Circle. As you can see, my notes are all over the place here. But there was an interesting thing, too, I think with one of these, it says. I think it might be the Erie Reader. It talked about how, it was adding on to, like, your legend, that, like, apparently, according to this one legend, same exact thing, but the groundskeeper of the cemetery put two and two together, and he's the one that then put the lock on the tomb. Because one of the things you'll notice that we'll take pictures of is the Vampire Crypt not only has the stone slab door, it has a metal grate door, and then there is an actual padlock on the outside.
Yeah. You cannot get into it.
No, so I think that was tying into that legend of the groundskeeper. It was like, hey, people are showing up drained. This guy just came back from Romania. We gotta lock it. And I think in one of these two, which I didn't know was a literary thing, it mentions that vampires, according to this one legend, part of it, it said he was infected with the vampire virus, but he succumbed to a certain ailment, and then he re-rose as a vampire. So I'd find that interesting too, if he died as a person, and he came back as a vampire, almost kind of like a zombie type deal.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that before, but I thought that was interesting too.
I was going to say, building off the lore, if you actually think about it, vampires in any media, vampires always have caretakers. So what if the Brown family was responsible for this group of vampires?
That is very true. And to build off what Alex mentioned earlier, just how big it is, 75 acres.
For a city cemetery, that is amazing.
Right in the heart of the city.
It's also, fun fact about it, literally a block and a half away is a very private but an old school Jewish cemetery that there's no public access, it's just for the members of the temple there, but it's interesting that it's literally a block away. It's so close.
Well, that was one of the things too in doing research. Erie Cemetery was the first localized cemetery. Because prior to that, all of the cemeteries were at the individual churches in town. And realizing that they couldn't sustain that and keeping all of their dead on the grounds of these churches, that's when they created the localized cemetery.
That makes a lot of sense why I would have an opening date of 1851, following the War of 1812 and
Yep.
everything locally that was happening around that time. They needed a place for these bodies, and I think they're still burying people there today.
Yep.
Which is just wild, just in the middle of the city of Erie. You can drive by and so much is being buried.
So keep looking at the story, and the more I think about it, why only 7 bodies of the Goodrich family? And my question is, when was that crypt officially constructed? Because if the last burial was 1880, and we know that it opened in 1851, that's only 29 years.
Yeah.
In 29 years, you had 8 people, or 7 people, all from the Goodrich family die and be buried there. And that's when the last one happened? Like, why that 29 year span, and why only those 7?
So, I know part of the answer. Like I said, this became a localized cemetery, so a lot of the bodies from these churches were relocated there. So, I'm sure some of them died before 1850, but that doesn't mean all of them did.
I'm saying, and the other question though is, since the vault's been locked for how long, we don't know the accurate years of anyone, because all those dates would be on the walls in the vault.
Like you said, we barely knew the name of the vault because
Yeah.
it has no markers on it.
No.
It's interesting.
So I was looking for this, from medium.com. Now I'm sad I didn't print off, that's the one website I didn't print off. There was a third legend about the crypt, still going with it. They mentioned the boy that took the finger and, well, the ring, and then he died and got his own finger ripped off. But there's another one about a group of boys that, for whatever reason, and it didn't give me a timeline, so I don't know when this was, if this was like Greece style, 60s, 70s, if this was in the 80s, 90s.
Greece is 50s.
No, Greece was everything before the 60s.
It happened a week ago. We don't know.
Yeah.
It's a timeless tale.
But this group of boys tried to set the crypt on fire, which it's a stone crypt. So first off, we're playing
I
is
do
doomed
know
to
this
fail.
one, yeah.
But so the kid started the fire on the roof of it, which apparently there's burn marks up there. But then he was flung off the top mysteriously, and he landed on the steps in front of it and died. I'm assuming of a broken neck, because it's not that big of a fall. But one, why are you lighting a stone building on fire?
I always wondered why it looked black. So this will go back to the scorching on some of those tombstones.
Yeah.
There's 2 possibilities. One, I did look up why it has those scorch appearances, and the not so fun answer is it's moss and lichen.
Yep.
As it dies, it stains it. But this whole crypt is almost black, so that's a lot of moss that I don't think was there. So I totally believe someone tried to light it on fire.
I'll say for my own school education stuff, I actually spent an entire week worth of class talking about lichen. When I was in Ireland, we visited a lot of cemeteries in the first week and talked about lichen growing on tombstones. So I can definitely back up the unfortunate, not fun scientific answer is usually when lichen dies, it stains. But the other thing is, lichen's hard to kill.
Yeah.
That stuff survives with very little anything.
Same with moss.
Yeah, so that raises the further question of how did it die? Especially if we're talking, we've had groundskeepers and caretakers taking care of the place. By killing that stuff early enough, it wouldn't cause
the stains.
So it does raise questions on, even if it is the lichen answer, why did that lichen in particular leave that stain? Because, again, it would have to be there and rotting for years to leave a stain, not just, oh, I killed it with pesticide, it should wash away pretty quickly. So that makes you think more about what the whole situation is with it.
Oh, for sure. And I think with that, we can segue over to the witch circle a little more. So one thing I wanted to mention is everyone makes a big deal out of the headstones being in a circle, but if you walk around the cemetery, there's a lot of areas like that. And, I mean, it is weird considering that everything is now in rows, but,
oh god, back in the old days, that was,
yeah.
wherever you had a spot, boom.
Yeah.
Well, back in the day, they had 75 acres still.
Yeah.
They weren't thinking about
So,
the uniform way we do it now.
I mean, a lot of these relocations, like we talked about, if they wanted their whole family in a circle, that's what they did.
Exactly.
But there's a lot of geometric patterns in there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And so, I mean, I just wanted to mention that. But one of the things building off the black dog is, during the research for this, I never heard that legend before. And then building off of it from this blog site, she mentioned that she went to college in Erie, and then she moved out to be like a traveling author. And she said one of her college buddies told her this, but I don't know. I couldn't find anything to back it up. But apparently the black dog not only roams near the witch's circle, but if you're hanging out there too long or you approach it, the witch's circle that is, the black dog will charge you like it's going to bite you and then vanish.
Yes.
So I thought that was pretty
I've heard that
pretty
one.
wild. And of course footsteps behind you, but this black dog, definitely, especially if it's around the witch's circle, which has that history and lore to it, would definitely make it more like a hellhound than
A typical black
Than a
dog.
black
dog,
Which we
yeah.
should probably talk a little bit about what the difference is. So
Yeah.
we know that, in case someone who's watching or listening to this isn't aware, a black dog is usually a death omen. It's not something that will kill you, but it is something that warns you that your death is near.
Imminent.
Yeah, it's coming usually within the next 24 hours.
Grim Reaper follows pretty quickly.
Yeah, but the black dog itself is not a harmful creature. It's not going to attack you. It's just there to kind of warn you that your death is there. So, in typical fashion, thinking that a black dog in a cemetery, it kind of fits, but at the same time it opens up that issue of if it's a death omen and people are seeing it, especially in the cemetery, what's there at the cemetery, which does lead us back to why, considering that the witch's circle, as it's called, is connected to satanic rituals, that leads it more to be a hellhound. So someone please take away and give us the distinction there.
So, whenever you see animals like dogs or even cats in cemeteries, one thing you have to remember is that's usually not the final resting place of animals.
Mhm.
So whenever you see animals there, it's generally something more. It's not necessarily something evil, whereas, like we said, a black dog is an omen. It's not positive or negative charge. It's
Neutral.
neutral.
Yeah.
It's a cell phone alert. It's a notification. Whereas a hellhound, that's a straight up virus. A hellhound is something that's oppressive, and it's something that can follow you. A hellhound, just like a poltergeist or negative energy, will drain you, and it won't just, let you know that your death is coming. It may, in fact, bring death. So, hellhounds are, like I said, an oppressive energy that can follow you.
Yeah, and so that's definitely what leads me to think, just from the stories, that it would be a hellhound, especially around a satanic area like that. is
And
what
it's
it would be.
aggressive.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And the other thing, too, because I couldn't find like a first story of the dog. Like there wasn't any like.
There's not an origin point.
Right, and so like the other thing I was curious, because I would love to experience the dog or at least see it. Is I wonder if it was ever attracted there from living people's energies. Because if you're going to explore, and especially in the older times before the internet and when people were more skeptical and more easily fooled, it'd be very easy to make that a negative location. And I'd be very interested to see if the dog was brought there just because of the overwhelming negative presence that ended up being compiled on top of whatever energy was there in the beginning.
Yeah.
The only other thing I want to mention, because we're staying impartial, is our healthy dose of skepticism. Less than, what was that, 5 years ago, there was a mother wolf walking around freely in the cemetery.
Yep.
And, I mean, there's been wolves in there, there's been foxes,
Coyotes.
Yes.
coyotes.
They're always more violent, but
There's always a chance that someone's stray dog could get in there. Doesn't mean the dog's going to just vanish. So we have to keep that healthy skepticism, but this is open to the wild.
Yeah.
There's deer in there. So the fact that an animal could be loose in there is always a possibility.
Yeah, that's what I was
I'll say
gonna bring up the same thing too when you're on the animals. And if a wolf is charging at you, it'd be very easy to close your eyes or try to run, and they're fast. Turn around, it could be very easily be gone.
Yeah.
And just to kind of piggyback with that as well, something that a lot of people, I wouldn't say tend to forget, but most people that go to a cemetery in general are there to mourn.
They're not in the right headspace.
They're not in the right
They're
headspace.
distraught.
They're very much in an emotional state, and so anything they see could be either self-conjuration, their own mind playing a trick on them. It could be actual paranormal kind of entity, or as we've kind of said, it could be a wild animal that they're seeing, but in their own grief, not able to comprehend that it is a physical animal and see it as something that it's not. So, yeah, that healthy dose of skepticism that we do, because we are coming to it impartial, is to remember, most people that are at the cemetery that do see these things are there for a particular reason. Either they're there to grieve or they're there to look for these paranormal things. So, if you go looking for something, you're going to find something. When in reality,
Which, flip side of that
Yep.
coin, if you're going in with that negative energy,
oh yeah,
any spirit can attach to you.
yeah,
You're a power battery for them. So we like to look at this logically and a little paranormally because it's more fun. But we are open.
So before we head out, I'm going to take a little bit here to just talk about what we expect to happen or what we hope to happen. For me, like I said, I would love to glimpse anything that looks like this dog, just because out of everything I found, it was, you feel like someone's watching you, you can hear footsteps, creepy feelings. Like if that dog appeared, like being the only story about like a physical apparition, I think that would be really cool. We are taking different cameras out and stuff, so even if we caught any like orbs, or specifically like black mist, anything that could even look like that dog, I think that would be really cool for me. So that's my major hope. As far as what I expect, with it being a cemetery, I definitely expect, the feeling that you're being watched, because a lot of those spirits, they don't leave the cemetery. So when someone's in there new, poking around some of these crypts, like we are going to examine the Vampire Crypt, if there's a spirit in there that doesn't like to be bothered, then we're probably going to get more negative vibes and feel like definitely somebody's really looking at us. So those are what I think. What about you?
Realistically, Andrew is more in tune with spirits and everything than I think either Sean or I. But very much my own personal experience with them is that I do feel those emotions very strongly, and I feel that kind of energy that happens. I'm not always able to see something, but I can always feel something. And so I'm anticipating feeling, at the very least, I could guarantee that I will feel a large amount of sadness, only because it is a cemetery. It's full of a lot of the dead that are stuck, and that's a lot of not negative energy, but to our modern sensibilities we call it negative. It's very depressing energy, and I expect to feel a lot of that. But I'm hoping, to be able to feel other feelings too, other type of energies. So yeah, that's what I'm hoping and expecting, actually, I'm hoping to feel some positive energy, and hopefully not feel negative energy associated if we do come in contact with the dog or the witch's circle or the vampire crypt. I'm hoping not to feel that negative energy, but no guarantees there.
I was gonna say, I'm hoping that we do find a dog. I mean, Alex has a new place. We're sending him home with a stray.
No, no.
But I agree. I'm not as sensitive to things as Andrew is, but much like Alex, if I'm in a place with a lot of energy, I can feel that energy. I can feel it shooting through me, and it's either very draining or it's like electricity, and you get that hair raising on your on your skin, and it's. I've been to this location a lot, at different times of the day, so I would be happy to see any of these things. Not necessarily Satan dragging us to hell, but if it happens, at least hopefully we get it on camera.
That's the portion of it live.
Oh God.
Just to put everything on your cloud.
Last person to go down has to go to Facebook Live real quick.
Yep.
Oh God.
It's going down.
As we see from every horror movie, it'll just be completely pixelated. People be like, what just happened?
So I think we're definitely in line with our expectations and hopes. So we'll go ahead, we'll get out there, and we'll see what we find. Finding the Vampire Crypt was pretty easy. We knew exactly where it was.
Here we are at the Vampire Crypt. See? V/a flower. I could see the flower in that.
Yeah.
Iron door.
Oh yeah.
Followed by the great door, which they removed the lock and just put a bolt through. But this is the famous crypt. And we are standing on the steps where a boy possibly died. Marble isn't in great shape yet.
Marble. Stone.
And the stone.
Blackened. This is like this. Way too dark.
The lichen.
If you look.
It looks almost like a paint roller.
Yeah.
I was running out of paint.
But if you look here, like this is
Solid.
yeah. Like if it was, this lichen's been dead in here for centuries, and here's fresh lichen right here. If you really wanted to, that little bit of orangish yellow, that's new lichen growing on it. And I could see brown.
Yeah. And what I always thought was kind of cool was this mausoleum goes into the hillside. So it's easy to get to the roof, which we will go check out.
All the different colors you have here, the different yellow and greenish lichen growing here all across.
So what color is lichen as it's dying?
See, that's the problem. Lichen is in so many different things. But they're different colors. It's not necessarily life or death. It's just lichen.
So when it dies, it just leaves that black stain.
Yeah, but that's also from years of decay.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that I can't see signs of any kind of fire.
See, the only place that looks different than the lichen, if you come over here, up near the top in the corner,
Yeah.
It's darker, but I wouldn't call it a burn mark.
Right. Well, and if you look here too, at the back of it, this looks like it's been repaired.
Ooh, yeah, that looks like new stone. Which I want to know what the inside looks like decay-wise since it goes into the ground.
Right.
Alex noticed this flower here, but then he did a little online sleuthing and he found out some interesting facts about this. What I thought was a pansy, but I was wrong.
It's officially called an impatiens. It's a type of touch-me-not flower, also native to Eastern Africa. They are used in like parks and places like that, but it's known particularly as do not touch. That's what it's known for as a flower. So it's interesting that it's grown right next to this crypt in particular. Yeah.
At the crypt, we didn't really feel anything, nor did we think we were experiencing anything at first. However, as we got home and looked at our pictures, we noticed there was an orb next to Alex as he was standing up inspecting the roof. You can see it right here, and then in the picture taken directly afterwards, as he leaves, the orb is gone. Now, none of us could truly remember where the witch's circle was located at. We all had different ideas, so we decided to pull it up using our phones and find the section that it was rumored to be in, which was section 34. So we ended up driving through the beautiful scenic cemetery looking for the witch's circle. On our way, we passed many gorgeous headstones and some peculiar layouts that were also in circles like we talked about earlier. We found them.
Do me a favor, recording, and we'll enter the circle here shortly. Linda Payne.
Back at the crypt, we didn't have much luck, but over at the witch's circle with the different energy, we got many orbs, as you'll see.
Payne, consort of Horace Payne. Consort?
Yeah.
And look, it's broke too.
So what's interesting is
To move.
over here and on that one, I don't know, it could just be there, but there's pennies on them, and copper is usually used to ward evil spirits and curses. I mean, those just could have fallen out of people's pockets, but it is kind of interesting that there's pennies placed on Peter de Mauve and then the consort, which we haven't checked out that one yet, but these look to be the only two broken. Yeah.
Are you ready for this one?
Yeah.
Luther Douglas died in the War of 1812. Well,
Ooh.
didn't die in the War of 1812, but died 1834, age 42 years old. He fought in the War of 1812.
Pennies.
Yes. 3.
More pennies. So, this one's obviously, I'm going to say, the darkest one. Does this look like lichen to you?
No.
I was going to say no too.
The darkness on this doesn't look like lichen. It looks like being stained. It's gotten rid of its color. This is the blackish. Like, this is dying lichen. That's not dying lichen.
Pennies. A lot more pennies.
Yeah, a lot
So
of
I am starting to think that those were deliberately placed there.
and in front of this one. There's a penny berry.
They put pennies with this guy too.
So there's pennies all around the circle.
Alright, since there's pennies, we'll be a little superstitious. Everyone take one. These are Apache tears, so they will absorb any negative energy so it doesn't stick to you. Someone will put copper there. Alright, see what the energy outside the circle.
We'll take a few more steps.
Yeah, away from the pennies and stuff. Alright, show me the energy flow. Alright, so
it's an even circle to my right. Clockwise. Yeah. And it's not too fast. It's a classic metal marker. You know, and it might just be my mind, but it almost felt like a gasp stepping through the barrier. But that could just be anticipation. Alright, show me the energy flow here. Looks like a little circle to the left of me. That's a sharp change to a no. Usually when I ask questions, that's a no. Looks like it's starting to go back in a circle now. Interesting. So the energy within the circle is definitely all over the place. Mm-hmm. But I don't think it's really being altered by the wind. It doesn't seem to be blowing with the way. I'll even stand in front of it and block the wind.
Is blowing in one direction. It's not crosswinds or anything.
And I'm now currently standing in front of the wind that was coming in towards this.
And unlike in other locations, this place has no utilities running in it.
No.
There's no electric coming through here.
The nearest electrical line is at least, what'd you say, 80 yards? Just because the energy change is so drastic, I'm definitely not going to be asking questions to any spirits in the circle. Just an energy change that drastic from outside isn't the best. But definitely take a look at the inside here. I want to know who put the pennies there. Yeah.
Well, and if you look, some pennies are newer. Some are underground.
Yeah.
Some have oxidized. Like,
it's really weird.
This is almost like a tradition.
Yeah, like there's a group of people that just come and put pennies in you.
Which, as we know, I mean, there's also the tale of leaving money for
the toll into the next world.
Into the next world.
And for a closer look at the back of the completely blackened excuse me.
Yeah. In front of, behind.
There are pennies surrounding this entire circle. The entire. Yeah, this is more. So any spirits that are attached to any of these stones, you know, we respect you. But, you know, please don't follow us home. Yeah, this one I feel really bad for. That is the headstone, completely engulfed by the tree. And there are pennies. Like we said, there's pennies all throughout the circle.
The energy in the witch's circle was definitely different, and going back through our pictures and videos later, we had a lot more activity than we could have even imagined. We even got an orb on a picture by the headstone that was being eaten by the tree. The witch's circle definitely has a special aura.
Alright, so we just finished our walk around the Erie Cemetery. You saw we hit up the Vampire Crypt and we hit up the witch's circle. We'll talk about the Vampire Crypt first here. Sorry, if I move my hand, there's this huge glare, so I gotta kind of sit weird here. So Alex, what was your thoughts about the Vampire Crypt?
So, I didn't feel any strong emotions, but I didn't feel any emotion. Like, that's the wrong spot. Like, there was nothing there. It felt really off.
But as I noted, and I'm sure will end up being part of this, is that there were some flowers planted there.
Got lucky.
Close. There were flowers planted outside that literally meant their symbolism is do not touch.
Yep.
And as we were walking around,
None of us touched.
I was Andrew touched. But I was looking around specifically for those flowers at other points, and there were none. Not even at the Witch's Circle. So felt a little weird that they were there, but that's all I got.
To me, it was different that there weren't offerings. One of the things is a lot of times people will weave flowers into the grate. We did see that they recently changed from a lock to a bolt, and the cemetery is, for some reason, pretty adamant about removing that stuff from that specific vault. I don't know if it's because there's no surviving family or what it is, but that stuff gets removed regularly.
You also noticed that there was, or I guess Andrew noticed that there was newer stonework.
Yeah.
On the back of it.
Yeah, I would definitely say the energy felt neutral. It wasn't positive or negative, which was kind of a surprise. I figured that would be a place that would have a lot more imprints. But then I thought about more, and if it's mostly curious people, then it would be neutral. But yeah, we didn't even break up the pendulum there.
Yeah.
The flowers were definitely curious, but the Witch's Circle was definitely...
It has a different feel.
It has a very different feel. You saw with the pendulum, it was all over the place, but it's also raises a lot more questions. There were pennies lining the circle on both sides.
These were all replants, like these were people relocated from different cemeteries.
When we crossed into the circle, it felt like you were like a gasp of air hit me. So it was definitely a different energy feel. They were definitely old, definitely looked a little different. What do you think about them, Alex?
The tree was interesting.
Yeah, the tree ate the one headstone.
Not only that, but the shape of the tree and the branches. The branches were all curved. We noticed there were several branches that were not connected, but still hanging in the tree, which was very interesting. But yeah, noticing that a lot of what people say are burnt headstones, a lot of it is lichen, but there is one headstone that was... It's not lichen. It's not the residue of a lichen that's been dead and wiped off. It looks like scorch marks. At least the one. The rest of them, not so much.
Which, once again, leads more on both arguments. I mean, if it would make sense if there was a summoning there and only one was burned. It's unlikely that they're all going to be burned and still remain standing. But as we said, these are replants, so that could have been damage done before the headstone was relocated here. Why you would just move a burnt headstone, I don't know. Maybe it was more expensive back then. But something to think about.
Yeah, definitely. And I thought it was weird too that a few of the headstones, they were thick and heavy duty headstones, but they were snapped like in half.
Yeah.
And I mean, that definitely could be like vandalism or something like that, but I definitely thought that was curious because that would take a lot of effort to crack and then fully snap one of those.
Right.
I was touching them, and they're pretty thick and heavy duty, so I thought that was definitely interesting. Definitely a lot of heebie-jeebie vibes, which we noticed there were some more markers that shouldn't have been there. So, there definitely could have been some agitated spirits there if people have been messing with them,
Right.
disrespecting them. Could also be imprints from it, but with that circle of pennies and just the energy in the middle different, I would definitely feel like some stuff is validated in regards to those legends. I don't know exactly what, but it definitely was different than the rest of the cemetery.
And as we said, we never saw anything about the pennies in any of our research. So that was surprising to us as soon as we saw the pennies.
Yeah, at first I just thought loose change fell out of someone's pocket, but then we noticed they were lining in front and behind all the graves and even on some of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the pennies were different years. We had, I think the oldest we found was 1957. The newest was 2020, so it definitely seems like something that's been going on for a while and might even annually. Alex, any final thoughts on Erie Cemetery? I did not see a black dog at all.
No.
Well, we did see a black dog,
But it was
but it was a living black dog.
Yeah, it was a
we
living
think,
black dog that belonged to people that were walking, so
though it didn't have a leash. So
yeah, I don't know. It was interesting, to say the least.
John?
Like I said, I've been here plenty of times. That was my first time actually walking inside the witch's circle. And really, like I said, it's almost a claustrophobic feeling once you step in. It's different. Just walking around the cemetery, it's very pleasant. It just felt anxious as soon as you walked in there.
Yeah, definitely flipped 180 to a totally different energy flow. Everything was just, I wouldn't call it bad or negative, but it just was very different from the rest of the cemetery. So we'll go ahead. We'll end this episode. Thank you for checking it out. Make sure to tune in next time as we check out more spots.
See you later, guys.
We are going to be looking at Wintergreen Gorge. The story is about a man named Tim who received a dog for his 10th birthday. Tim named the large black dog Dutch.
This leads to this very real. Wintergreen Gorge is a beautiful, but also a potentially dangerous place because...
Andrew and I were discussing at the time of this recording, there was a death at Wintergreen Gorge roughly 2 months ago.
If it was a warpath that they use to travel to and from places, like, there's bound to be some individuals that died. So why isn't their energy stuck there? So
Maybe Tim and Dutch literally imprinted on this place. Tim and Dutch are patron saints, or like black dogs are omens.
That they saw Tim and Dutch. For the most part, it seemed to be up near the Devil's Backbone.
We're talking painful, violent deaths.
yeah.
If they aren't falling to their death, they're drowning.
Yeah.
So we are in for a little longer of a hike, but I have found that's what it's here for, Devil's Backbone. I'm going to ask to show the energy flow. Show me the rock energy. Decided to sheer drop for about... If you fall, you're most likely not making it back up.